Good day and welcome back to my channel. My name is Laura Burke. If this is your first time here, I usually do lifestyle and makeup, but today I'm going to take a hard right turn into murder. I am a huge true crime fan, and I have watched other YouTubers such as Bailey Sarian do their makeup and tell a true crime story, and I have loved every minute of it, and I want to attempt to do that myself. So today I'm going to be talking about the notorious Chris Watts. I chose Chris Watts because he's the most that I know about offhand, so I can talk about him easily while doing my makeup. I'm going to be mentioning all of the products that I'm using listed below, but I will probably show the screen the products that I'm using as well. So let's just dive right in. I got these new hair clips from Amazon. I will link them below. This is going to be the first time that I am using them. So Chris Watts, Christopher Lee Watts, was born on May 16th, 1985 in North Carolina to Cindy and Ronnie Watts. He has a sister named Jamie Lynn, just like Britney Spears, which I thought was funny, who names their child Jamie Lynn. And he was a bright student in his high school, and he wished to become part of the stock car auto racing crew for NASCAR. He won third place in the North Carolina Automobile Dealers Association competition, which was held in Winston-Salem in 2003, and he received a $1,000 scholarship to the Universal Technical Institute and the NASCAR Technical Institute in Mooresville. Sha'nann Watts, and her name is spelled very interesting. Cheyenne, it's not Cheyenne, it's Sha'nann. And it's funny because I know that, and I've watched so many documentaries where they're like, Cheyenne, Sha'nann, and then I just went ahead and did it myself. So Sha'nann spelled S-H-A apostrophe N-A-N-N, and then her maiden name is like Rooks. Someone's got to tell me how to do it. It's like R-Z-U-K. Was born on January 10th, 1984 to Frank and Sandra Rusek. Her brother was named Frankie, and she was from Moore County. She is a Capricorn and he is a Taurus. I don't know how much stock you put in astrology. I like astrology. I actually wish I knew a little bit more about astrology. I definitely believe in astrology, but and I've dated lots of Tauruses, oddly enough. Chris and Sha'nann met via Facebook way back in 2010, and he had sent her like a Facebook message, essentially just being like, "You're cute. Let's get together," and she thought he was cute, which he was for a serial killer. Sorry, not serial killer. What are they called? They're called family obliterators, I think. Family annihilators. They spent 8 years in total. They married on November 23rd, 2012, and his parents didn't attend the wedding. They didn't like Sha'nann immediately. Chris was very like docile, and he was very giving, and Sha'nann was very demanding. She controlled all the money. She was pretty bossy. She talks about how when they first met on their first date, she wasn't very impressed because they went to a fancy restaurant and he was like dressed super casually, but then she got sick. She had lupus, and she got really sick, and they took, I think, a bus or a train home from their first date, and he let her sleep on him, and he didn't move for like hours and hours. So she was like, "Oh, he's so sweet," but his parents thought that she was very controlling. So his parents did not attend their wedding, which is actually quite sad. I mean, it must have been sad for him, because I would be so upset if my parents did not attend my wedding. And they were mad because she kind of forced them to move to Colorado. They went to like for a trip to visit, and she fell in love with Colorado, and she was like, we're up and moving, and his parents didn't like that she was taking him away from them. And there seemed to be contention with his parents throughout their entire marriage, and there was a huge fight towards the end of this story between his parents and Sha'nann. So Chris was a field coordinator and a mechanic, and she was a part of a multi-level marketing company called Lavelle that sold Thrive products. They were like health supplements, health food, and they sold like vitamin patches, and she would do media on her Facebook page using Chris and the family as kind of like promotion materials for her Thrive vitamin patches. And it actually found out later that there was weird side effects that came with the patches, and people wondered if that actually had anything to do with what happens later in the story. Do you know what? I said I was going to do the foundation first, but I'm not. I'm going to finish my eyes because we're going to do something bright. So I want to do my eyes first before we move on to complexion. So after they got married, they immediately started trying to have kids, and they had 2 daughters. Bella Marie Watts, born December 17th, 2013, and Celeste Catherine Watts, who they called Cece, born July 17th, 2015. They lived in a 5-bedroom home in Frederick, Colorado that they purchased in 2013, and then they declared bankruptcy in 2015. I always wondered why, because they made really good money. According to the bank documents, they made like a combined of $100,000 a year, and their mortgage was only $3,000 a month. So their home was $400,000, which was so cheap. I live in Vancouver, and I'm looking to buy my first apartment, and a 1-bedroom apartment in Vancouver, not even in Vancouver, on the outskirts of Vancouver, is like $600,000, and they have a 5-bedroom home for $400,000 in Colorado. Again, this was back in like 2013, so, but still, so I'm like jealous, but I love living in Vancouver. It's the best. So that's only like $36,000 a year that they would spend on their mortgage, and that left a ton for life and bills and all that stuff, in my humble opinion. But it seemed that Sha'nann had kind of a shopping addiction. She wrote on her Facebook that when she was pregnant with Celeste and Bella, she would constantly be buying clothes for the unborn children, and she would constantly be buying stuff for their house and fixing up their house. So it seems that she was not very good with money, and she was in charge of both of their paychecks. When Chris got his paycheck, he immediately gave it to Sha'nann, and she essentially paid all the bills, did everything, but was obviously not very good with money because they declared bankruptcy in 2015. Sha'nann was previously married. She was married to some guy named Leonard King, who's an attorney in North Carolina. They were married in 2002, and they divorced in 2008. So they were together for 6 years. And an FBI agent went to go talk to Leo after, spoiler alert, she gets murdered. So an FBI agent goes to talk to Leo, and he claimed that they did not speak for about 10 years. And when they're married, Sha'nann asked Leo to get a very expensive insurance policy on each other. So when they divorced, Leo made the insurance policy less, and he also changed the beneficiary so it wasn't to Sha'nann anymore. But he also said that when their marriage suffered, that she would pour herself into work. She wouldn't come home, she would ignore him, she would ice him out, and she would focus entirely on work. It was funny too, because after Leo and Sha'nann divorced, he ended up marrying another woman who also worked for Thrive, Sha'nann's company. Leo stated that Sha'nann was obsessed with her cell phone. She would always be on it. She would always be talking to people. And he said that she had a compelling personality that people really liked and were really drawn to, and that she was a nice person. But again, when they had troubles, that she would ice him out and they would stay in opposite rooms. So things seem to turn awry when they find out that they're expecting their third child. She has a video of her telling Chris that she's pregnant again, and he dutifully is like, well, I guess what you want happens if you wish for it hard enough, and doesn't seem overly excited. I mean, it's hard to judge something like that because I think that someone like Chris like really did not want to be on camera all the time. I think she forced him into like photo ops for social media, and he seemed like shy. He seemed to not want to be around on camera, and so he obviously knew that there was a camera set up. So it's really hard to judge what he really, like, whether he reacted like good or bad if he wanted this kid. But around the same time that Sha'nann got pregnant, he started an affair with his coworker, Nicole Kessinger. So as he started his affair with this woman, Nicole Kessinger, obviously became really cold and distant to Sha'nann, and then she ends up flying to North Carolina to go on a 6-week vacation with her kids to go see her parents, his parents, and then he is going to fly out for the last week of their vacation to spend time with them, but he has all of this time without them, and that's really where the bulk of his relationship took off with Nicole Kessinger. And then everything comes to a head when Sha'nann flies home from a business meeting after they get back from their family vacation. She leaves the kids with Chris, and then she and her friend, a woman also named Nicole Atkinson, go on a business vacation for a couple nights, and then she comes home really late at night. She returned home from a business trip to Arizona at about 1:48 a.m. in the morning on August 13th, 2018. She got a ride from her friend, Nicole Atkinson, from the airport, and Chris was home with the kids at the time, and they had been having arguments recently since she accused Chris of having an affair. And which he was. He met Nicole Kessinger. So this is going to be interesting. So Nicole Atkinson is her friend, and Nicole Kessinger is the mistress. So he met Nicole Kessinger at his job 2 months previously at his work at Anadarko Petroleum. One day in the middle of June, he walked into her office, he introduced herself, and they like continued casual conversation. She tells the media after that she noticed that he wasn't wearing a wedding ring and she thought he was attractive. So basically Chris appeared to be a bachelor and he made no mention of his wife, Sha'nann. So Kessinger reportedly felt really comfortable getting to know him, which I totally understand that. You know, when he spoke to her, she said that he was super soft-spoken. He appeared to be a good listener. She revealed that Chris told her that he was separated from his wife and had 2 young daughters, and was working through divorce proceedings. I'm using hibiscus in this Hawaii, hanging in Hawaii BH Cosmetics palettes, which actually is only sold in the States, and I live in Vancouver, so that sucks. So pretty immediately, Chris gets Nicole's Kissinger's phone number and like enters it into his phone, and he tells Nicole that he's in the process of getting a divorce. Sha'nann, literally 2 days later after he enters in her phone number into his phone, shares a picture of the ultrasound on social media, and she said online that she was going to name her unborn son Nico. And like, no judgment, but I would never tell the name of my unborn son or daughter on social media before they were born. Like, you do you, girl, but like, I don't know, I think that's special. I think that's something like you should wait. And I know in Jewish culture, you don't actually tell someone for, I think it's 8 days. You don't tell anyone the name of your child. And then you have a naming ceremony on the 8th day, and then you let everyone know their name. In her post, she also adds that like Chris is going to be the best dad. He's the best dad to their 2 daughters, and she's so excited to raise her unborn son with Chris. So she took the kids to North Carolina for a 5-week vacation to see the family. And on July 4th, Nicole went to Chris's house for the first time. Nicole Atkinson. Nope, that's the friend, Nicole Kissinger. Maybe I'll just call them Kissinger for kissing Chris and Atkinson for Sha'nann's friend. How does anyone else get around this? All these bumps down the road, they'll be ironed out, I swear. Okay, I'm going to move on to eyeliner. So while Sha'nann is in North Carolina to visit her family, Chris has Nicole over to their house for the first time for lunch. And he ignores a bunch of calls from Sha'nann. And she already stuffs up. They've been fighting. Stuff's going down with her family. And he's ignoring her calls. And she is like, Mayday, Mayday. She's already texting her friends like, something's going on. He woke up the next day to several missed calls from Sha'nann. And she's like, are you okay? It seems like you don't want to talk. I miss you. I feel like you just want to like work out and run and be alone. And she said, like, I wish my husband would want to talk to me, which I totally get. Oh my gosh, if you're going on vacation with your 2 kids and your husband isn't calling you back, you're like, hello, please. So on the 8th, Kissinger and Chris go on their first date. They go to a car show because they both love cars. And Sha'nann calls him 4 times, all missed calls. And then on the 18th, Kissinger ends up sending him nudes for the first time. Chris ends up storing all of his texts and nudes on a secret calculator app on his phone where it just looks like a regular calculator, and then it works like a regular calculator. So if you press into it and you just use it like a calculator, it works. But if you press in a special code, then it opens up this secret folder full of nudes. And I find this both like ingenious and repulsive, because it is ingenious, but it's also like, it sucks that it's needed. It sucks that people use this. It sucks that like you need to hide stuff from, you know, your significant other. It's like meant for cheaters, you know? So Chris stored every type of communication with Kissinger on this calculator app. And in order to conceal it, that he made sure that he kept a password on his phone, but Sha'nann made sure that she told him that he needed to give her his password. One of the detectives even said that he's certain that Watts communicated with Kissinger a bunch more, but they couldn't access all of it because of this app. It became apparent that he received a bunch of nude images from Kissinger, and then he stashed in that application to prevent Sha'nann from ever seeing them. So Sha'nann flies to North Carolina to finish her vacation with her family, and Chris's parents gave Bella some ice cream that had nuts with it, and Sha'nann walks in and is like, what are you doing? Like, they have allergies. Like, what do you... And they got in a huge fight. They got in an argument, and apparently the grandparents, which you think these grandparents would not want to harm their grandchildren, got equally as mad back and were like, well, we should still be able to have it in the house. Like, just because they're allergic, that doesn't mean that we should not be able to have this treat. And it's like, yes, it does. If they're, especially because peanut allergies are one of those types of allergies that you could literally kill someone. Like, if you have it around and someone smells it, they could die. And these are your grandchildren. It's mind-boggling. So Sha'nann tells Chris about this argument, and she's pretty much like, I need you to stand up for your family. And Chris ends up sending his parents like a message telling them how important it is that I don't like this eyeliner. It's difficult to work with. Telling them how important it is to treat the safety of his kids because of their allergy, which I totally get. And so she starts confiding with her friends about her husband, that he was cold to her during their last ultrasound for Nico, and when he comes to visit them on their last part of the holiday, like, he doesn't want to have sex with her. And meanwhile, Kissinger is at home, and she's been searching for wedding dresses on the internet for 2 hours. And I mean, I get it. I was always that girl. Even if I just had a boyfriend that I didn't want to marry, I always wanted to plan my wedding. I'm still I'm in a committed relationship, and I've been married once already, and I still look at wedding dresses. I still know what I want for my next engagement ring. Like, I designed my last engagement ring. Like, I think that's totally natural and normal, and I don't think we should shame Kessinger at all for it, because, girl, you do you. If you want to look at wedding dresses, she was like late 20s, like, go for it. I totally get that. So when Chris comes to visit North Carolina for the last part of their trip, he's pretty cold and distant, like, to her, but the family says, like, they didn't notice anything when he was around them. Like, he was so happy to see the girls, he was good with the girls, and everything seemed fine, but Sha'nann said that he didn't want to have sex with her. So soon after they get home from family vacation, this is 22 linen. It's actually one of my best color matches ever. I usually, if I'm looking for another color, I'll look at the Shiseido, like, I'll bring it with me at the store and I'll be like, this is my best color, and I try to match it. So they get home from family vacation on the 9th of August, and she almost immediately leaves for a business trip in Arizona, and she ends up sending a picture of a handwritten letter that she wrote to Chris before she left to one of her girlfriends, so she could be like, please, like, look at this, I'm trying to make my relationship better. And it says that she, like, doesn't know how Chris, like, fell out of love with her, and she sends, like, drafts of a speech that she has for Chris to a bunch of her friends, and things that she plans to say, like, can you please, you know, like, tell me something, I'm in my head, like, this is all making me crazy, I want to give you what you're asking for, this place I'm in my head is, like, not a good place, help me help you, like, I can't fix this by myself, we're gonna have to work together. She told him that she doesn't feel safe with him because he said when, like, after the ultrasound for Nico, that he didn't want to have a third baby, that he was happy with just Bella and Celeste, which, like, how do you even say that to someone? And it's funny because I was talking to my boyfriend about this other case this morning that I was watching this other YouTuber do, and she kept saying, how do you do that? How do you do that? And I'm like, because you're a psychopath. Because they're killers. Like, why do you even ask? Like, they're crazy people. And then here I am being like, how do you say that you don't want a third baby? Because it's obviously the truth, like, his truth. And he's not afraid to say it like that. He doesn't want to have a third baby. So while Sha'nann is away on her business trip, Chris takes Kessinger on a date. They go to a restaurant called the Lazy Dog. It's like a pub. And Sha'nann sees on their credit card statement that he goes to this pub, and she asks Chris about it, and he's like, yeah, I'm just going after work with a bunch of colleagues. And she sees that he spent like $60 something at this pub, and so she looks up the menu, which is, like, sneaky. I'm so glad that I've never had to, like, be sneaky and track my boyfriend or my significant other and do things that are, you know, like, oh, what's he doing? Let me check. Oh, there's $60 on this. Let me look up the menu and see, like, how expensive stuff is. And she sees that, like, how could you spend $60? You said you had, like, a beer and salmon, and that would be like $30. Like, you're lying to me. What are you talking about? And I don't think he ever answers her. It's funny, I just said this is my best color match, and it's looking too pale on camera. I think it looks good in person, but I think it's ended up looking really pale on camera. It's okay. I'm gonna do a second go, guys. Don't panic. Every time I say that, that reminds me of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Yeah. Do you have your drink of choice? Your coffee? I got a coffee and I got an agua. I drink so much water, it's ridiculous, and so much coffee, it's ridiculous. So on the 14th, Sha'nann flies home from Arizona at 4 a.m. And again, her friend Atkinson drives her from the airport to her house, and it was caught her coming home on her neighbor's camera and her, I think they have like a doorbell camera or something, which is funny because you only ever see that footage when she's coming home. Like, you can see her getting, like, wheeling her luggage into her house and going in her house, but later the only footage we see is from like the neighbor's vantage point. So I'm wondering where that other footage went. So she initiated sex when she got in, and they had sex, and then they went to bed. There's a quote from Chris in a letter that he wrote to this woman. He wrote a bunch of letters to this woman after the fact, it kind of talking about his experience while he was in jail. And I'm just going to read this quote. So he says, on the morning of August 13th, I went to the girls' room first before Sha'nann and I had our argument. I went to Bella's room and then Cece's room, and I used a pillow from their bed to try to kill them. That's why the cause of death was smothering. And after I left Cece's room, then I climbed back into bed with Sha'nann, and our argument ensued. However, Chris also explained that his first attempt to kill his daughters didn't work, and he thought he had already killed them. And then after he had strangled Sha'nann, Bella and Cece woke back up, he said, I'm not sure how they woke back up, but they did. Bella's eyes were bruised. Both girls looked like they had been through trauma, and that made the act that much worse, knowing that I went into their rooms first, and I still took their lives at the location of the batteries. So when they woke up early in the morning, Sha'nann accused Chris of cheating, and he snapped and started strangling her. And the noise of the fight woke up his youngest daughter, Bella, his oldest daughter, Bella, and she came into the room, and Bella watched as he wrapped up her body with the sheet. And he says, quote, the girls were just kind of running around the house and watching me with scared looks on their faces. Bella started to cry, and when she did, Celeste started whimpering. What a nightmare this was. I realize now that the girls getting up and walking around may have been God's third attempt to stop me doing what I was doing. This was in letters to a woman named Sha'nann Watts. So they woke up, they started fighting, Chris snapped and strangled Sha'nann to death. When Sha'nann was dead, he dragged her body down the stairs and was noticed by his eldest daughter, Bella, who cried and said, what's wrong with mommy? He then stuffed Sha'nann on the floorboards and his two daughters in the back seat of his work truck. Chris ended up transporting his wife's dead body and his alive daughters for a 45-minute drive to his work site, which was an oil site on the property of Anadarko Petroleum. Upon getting there, he took out his daughters out of the car, took them one at a time, and first he smothered Cece, his youngest daughter, using a blanket and threw her body into an oil tank. He returned and he did the same thing to Bella. And according to the account provided by Chris, before Bella died, she asked him, is the same thing going to happen to me as Cece? How sad is that? Awful. There's a quote from, again, one of these letters that says, little quiet Bella had a will to live. Out of all three, Bella is the only one that put up a fight. I will hear her little soft voice for the rest of my life saying, Daddy, don't. So after he killed his daughters, he stuffed them into an oil tank, which has a diameter of about 8 inches. So he had to stuff his daughters' bodies into these oil tanks. And then he ended up burying Sha'nann's body in a shallow grave on the same site, a little bit of way away. And then after he was done at around 8 a.m. on August 13th, 2018, he was filmed picking up a sandwich and chatting with a cashier. He's caught on video. He was wearing an orange shirt with sunglasses perched on top of his baseball cap, and he takes his change, he puts it in his wallet before he walks away from the counter. Chris's seemingly calm demeanor while picking up a snack now seems particularly haunting, as he only had just recently murdered his entire family. So he left his home around 5:30 a.m. that day. And I mean, this is one of many things that are bizarre about these murders. It definitely seems strange that Chris seemingly ran normal errands right after committing these crimes, because at 10 a.m. Chris ended up looking up the lyrics to a Metallica song called Smashing Through the Boundaries. And while Chris and Sha'nann appeared to have a seemingly perfect marriage, to onlookers on her Facebook page, their relationship had been deteriorating for quite some time, and there was documents released by the county district's attorney's office that Sha'nann had texted one of her friends about being scared of Chris on like August 7th. And she said that he's changed, that she doesn't know who he is anymore, that his behavior towards Sha'nann had become noticeably different. And she said that she told him that she didn't feel safe with the baby after what he said about not wanting to have a third child. So the last day that he spent with his two little daughters was like a normal, fun Sunday. They watched cartoons, they went to Target, which as a Canadian, I wanted to go to a Target so bad. Target, Ulta, TJ Maxx, I'm dying. Trader Joe's, I need to go over the border and just like do some shopping because I am dying for some stuff from there. So they picked up a birthday gift for a birthday party that they were going to later. And the birthday party, the girls had an epic time, which is what he told Sha'nann. At 5 p.m., he told a coworker that he was gonna end up going out to the oil field the next morning instead of the office, which seems to be premeditated. You know, so the day before the murders, he texted a coworker saying that he was going to go out to the oil field in the morning early, which is premeditation, right? It's funny because he says like he had said that he just snapped and ended up strangling his wife, but he ends up saying later in letters that he had spent weeks of thinking about killing her. And then when he finished putting the girls to bed on the 12th, he walked away and he said, like, that's the last time I'm going to be tucking my babies in. I knew what was going to happen the day before. I did nothing to stop it. And so on the morning of August 13th, after he kills his wife and Celeste and Bella, he goes to work. He's normal. Everyone says that he's been acting very normal. And something's going on with my, it's okay, we gonna fix it. So Nicole knew that Sha'nann had a doctor's appointment that morning, so she became concerned when she was texting Sha'nann, and like Leo said, Sha'nann was obsessed with her phone, so she wasn't getting any texts back. And immediately Atkinson grew concerned because she's like, this isn't her. I'm just gonna like check up on her. And so she went over to the Watts home. She became concerned because she knew that she had a OBGYN appointment that morning. And she texted her like, hey, let me know how the appointment goes. And then she never got a text back. So she was going because Nico, her unborn son, had an irregular heartbeat. And Nicole said that Sha'nann was distraught on the weekend. She had a strict schedule. Her phone was her lifeline. She kept getting phone calls, wasn't answering. And then her phone was turned off at some point, which was just like, Mayday, Mayday. Her phone was a part of her job. Like, her friends say that she would never go anywhere without her phone. Nicole's text at 8:55 was like, hey, I just want to know that you're okay. 9:21, hey, let me know how your appointment goes. At 11:46, she said, hey, I'm very worried about you. Like, I'm coming to your house. I'm going to come check up on you. She knew that something was off. And so she went to go check up on her. So Nicole saw that Sha'nann's car was in the garage and no one answered the door. So she knocks, she rings the doorbell, and Chris knew that Nicole was there because they had like a doorbell camera. So Atkinson texts Chris and is asking where she is, and Chris is like, oh, she went on a play date. And Atkinson's like, she didn't go on a play date. She wouldn't go. Her car is here. Her shoes are here. Like, no, like something's amiss. I'm calling the police. So Atkinson notified the police like immediately and asked them to come do a welfare check. So Officer Kurad, he arrives at the house to conduct a welfare check at about like 1:40 p.m. So there's no response to the door, and he calls Chris for the garage door code and keypad, and Chris said that it didn't work, but I think I remember, like, when he came home, he immediately used the keypad. I remember him going in through the garage when he comes home. So I don't, like, maybe he had like a clicker or something, but I think I remember him going through the garage in the footage, and he's like, oh yeah, the keypad doesn't work. So I wonder like how much of that is a lie. So Chris arrives home from work at the officer's like behest, and immediately is like frantic. He's like opening the door. He's like, hey, how's it going? Shakes his hand. Yeah, okay. Walking around, like he gave the police permission to search the house, but like obviously none of the family was found. The searchers discovered Sha'nann's purse, her phone, and when he sees her phone, he turns it on, and Chris, and it like immediately blows up with messages, and a couple are from Chris, and he reads them out, and he's like, 7:40 a.m. if you take the kids somewhere, please let me know. Noon, call me please. And then Chris stages like finding her wedding ring, and it's so interesting because I'm an actor, and I truly think that sometimes you can't tell someone is lying, and I think that people react differently to things, so you don't know. So it could have been, when he finds the wedding ring, it could have been real. Like, you never know how people are going to react, but he finds this ring, and is like, here's a ring, you know, oh, she left her ring, her ring's here, her keys are still here, and her car, you know, which has the children's car seats, was still in the garage. So Officer Kurad is immediately suspicious of Chris. He asks him what happened the last time he saw him. Chris tells the officers that when they got home, that they had an emotional discussion, and that Chris wanted to end their marriage, and Kurad was like immediately concerned. And I think, what a stupid thing. Like, if you're gonna lie, I mean, obviously I don't want people lying, I want people getting caught, but like, if you're gonna lie to the police, do a better job. Like, don't tell them that you had an argument with your wife the night before she went missing. Like, just don't tell them that. Like, tell them that she came home, you had sex, you went to bed, you woke up in the morning, you went to work, she said she was going to a play date, boom, bada bing, that's done. Like, and so him telling Officer Kurad that they had an emotional conversation, like, immediately is like, well, okay, well, the husband did it, he's cheating. So the neighbor invites Chris and the police officer over to his house to look at his footage. So the footage is from his like front door or whatever, and Chris isn't looking at the TV at all. The neighbor is like showing the police officer, he's like, here's your truck, here's where she came home last night, this is you leaving for work, this is you like loading your stuff in, and the TV's like here, and Chris is here, like looking this way. So this is the TV. He's not looking at the TV. He's looking this way, and he's like looking on his phone. He didn't want to, in my opinion, like he didn't want to see himself get caught. So he was like faking being on his phone, and the neighbor said that he wasn't acting right at all. So the neighbor thought it like he wasn't acting right at all, and he was like rocking back and forth. The police thought that it was weird that there was no top sheet in the master bedroom, because the rest of her house was pristine. Everything was organized, everything was gorgeous, and yet they were missing a top sheet on the master bed, which is just weird. The police spent the night looking through Chris's computer and all the information that it had on it before the polygraph the next day. So the next day, August 14th, Chris appeared on TV to talk about his missing family, their disappearance, and he just kept saying the same thing over and over again. And again, this is like, makes me wonder, I'm like, why are you even doing this? You do not have to go on TV. And he's on TV, he's like, I just want him back. Whoever took them, like, it's not the same. I walk into the house and it's not the same. Like, if you took them, I want him back. I need to see everyone. He was like clean cut, like California, like cool and collected. Like, I just need to see everyone again. Like, this house is incomplete. And the FBI and the Colorado Bureau of Investigation joined the investigation the next day on August 14th, and they brought dogs into his house, like cadaver dogs searching the property. And the dog trainer kept saying on TV, like, wow, this house is like way too immaculate. It's so weird. It's like super not normal. And so on the 15th, he went down to the station to talk to the police. And the police that night, as they were like searching through everything, found out that he has a mistress. And they put him through a lie detector test, and he epically fails this lie detector test. He confesses to his father. After he's done with the lie detector test, the woman is like, so obviously you know that you failed this lie detector test, so tell us what's going on. And he pretty much was like, I want to talk to my dad. And so the detectives at that point in time had to make a decision, like, are we going to let this guy talk to his dad, or should we arrest him right now? Like, it was really a make or break decision at that point. So during the investigation, he ends up confessing to his dad that he walked in on Sha'nann strangling their daughters and killing them, and then he just snapped. And that's when he killed Sha'nann, and then he didn't know what to do. So he took care of their bodies, and his poor father is just like, doesn't know what to do with this information, is so upset, and is, you know, he obviously believes his son, and, you know, he feels bad for him. But this story falls apart really quickly, and he eventually confesses to just strangling all of them. And then they print out a map of the oil site. Like, he tells them where the bodies are buried, and so they print out a map of his oil site, and they're like, circle where and he like makes a B for where Bella is, and a C for where Cece is, and an S where Sha'nann is. So they find the two girls in the oil tanks and Sha'nann in a shallow grave nearby. So Chris ends up getting fired from his job on the date that he was arrested, and then on August 21st, Sha'nann's family appears in court as he pleads guilty to all 9 counts. So Chris is sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences, and he was charged with the unlawful termination of a pregnancy and tampering with the deceased body. So on November 15th, Kessinger ends up speaking out with the Denver Post. She said that she never knew that Sha'nann was pregnant. She had Googled the name of Sha'nann Watts and Chris Watts as early as September of the previous year. So Sha'nann had been murdered in August, so like almost a full year before. And she also did on multiple occasions in June of 2018, which is when she told police that her and Chris had gotten together. So she claims that Chris was more into their relationship than she was, but she also was found on her Google search that she was searching marrying your mistress, like how often people marry their mistress. And then later, cops end up revealing more of her text messages, and she was end up Googling, like, can cops find your text messages? And I'm guessing that she found some not so good answers, because she ends up deleting all of her messages, all of her photos, and all of her search history before she contacted the police. She contacted the police very early on when Sha'nann was missing, which is great. Kessinger also ended up Googling Amber Fry, which was Scott Peterson's mistress, who ended up getting like a book deal and getting a lot of money out of her association with Scott Peterson, who ended up killing his wife Lacey and their unborn child as well. So we may not exactly know how much Nicole actually knew about what was going on, but in the revelations of her phone data do not hint at absolute innocence. So Chris Watts pleaded guilty to first-degree murder in November 2018. His parents ended up giving an interview to ABC defending their son. Chris's mother, Cindy, said that her son's marriage to Sha'nann Watts was a very hard relationship, and as far as she was concerned, that she thought that Chris couldn't do anything right. Chris's parents had also suggested that, this is Dolly, that his marriage to Sha'nann changed him. They said that he was normal, he never had a temper, he was not a monster, he was easygoing like his dad. And then Ronnie Watts, his father, defended his son to ABC and explained that it's hard for him to believe that he would hurt the girls. Like, no matter what, the story that he told me that night, he believes it. He said the way he looked at me, the way he was crying, that he believed it. I mean, I don't blame his parents for not wanting to believe that their son was capable of something like this. So later, Chris says to that author, Cheryl Cadle, who he ends up communicating with in letters, that he thought that if he had not met Nicole Kessinger, then he would have never killed his family. He said that all he could feel now was, at the time, that he wanted to be free to be with Nikki. And his feelings of love for her were overwhelming him, and that he felt absolutely no remorse at the time for killing his family to be with Nikki Kessinger because their love was so overwhelming. So Chris also revealed to this author, Cheryl Cadle, I think is her name, that he said that day that the darkness inside of him had won. If it was still in him, though, that he thought that it might be permanent, that he would always have this darkness inside of him. He said he felt evil. He felt swallowed up by this awful, evil feeling, and he felt that he could kill anything and just be justified in his anger. So Chris is technically identified as, like I said at the beginning of the video, a family annihilator. And it is said that family annihilators are usually white middle-aged men, and the crimes usually occur in August before school starts. And because they are occurring in August and there's no school at the time, then it delays detection, and it doesn't help solve the crime, because if a family annihilator takes out his entire family, then there's no one to essentially report them missing if they're not going to school. So one of the only things that makes Chris Watts unique from other family annihilators is that usually other family annihilators end up committing suicide after they kill their entire family. And Chris Watts claims that he did consider committing suicide, but he was too excited about his new relationship with Nicole. All right, so that is it for my first murder and makeup video. I hope you enjoyed that. I will try next time to be a little bit more succinct and less and ummy. I am working on it, friends. Please subscribe and like this video. I am a burgeoning YouTube channel, and I would love to hear your feedback, questions, comments, any of that. Thank you so much if you stayed to the end of this video, and stay tuned for next time. Be well. Have a good day.